Welcome back to Clarity Convos for Wedding Pros podcast. I'm your host, Aislinn, and today we have a very, very special guest episode because I have a friend who is on our podcast today. Christa, please say hi.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, Aislinn. I'm so excited.
Thank you so much for being here. I am so excited for this conversation. I know it's going to be incredibly powerful because we're going to be talking about scalable businesses. We're going to be talking about some of our journey and like how we got to where we are. But Christa, if you guys have never met her, Christa Rene is a decade-long photographer who is also a full-service coach for photographers. So she has run multiple businesses. She has run multiple very, very successful businesses. So this is truly an honor to have you here. And I'm so excited for you to kind of get into this topic today.
Yeah, I'm so excited to be here with you and just to chat about our journeys because I feel like there's so many parallels just in different ways.
Yeah. So I think the first thing I kind of want to like dive into is like, how do we know each other? Like why did I say that we're friends if we've known each other a long time? So if you want to like kind of like give your side of it, I'll give my side too.
Okay, so I met Aislinn at a conference and I still remember the evening that I sat down with you, and I cannot remember why I sat down with you. I don't know if it was like we just didn't know anybody and there was a group and we made that connection, and then you reconnected with me after, and you were running your business in a way that I was not running mine yet. And I was at a point, I had just gotten married, I believe, and really just wanted to be sustainable, which is why I was at a conference for photographers or creatives. And I looked up to you so much just in what you were doing and how you ran your business. And it was something different than I had known ever before. And I saw how successful you were and was like, well, gracious, if this girl can do it, like there's a better way. And I jumped all into education. You even helped me set me up with some of my first mentors on this journey for photography. And was one of the big reasons that I ended up, shifting to full service and now get to coach on it.
I love this so much. So we met back in 2017 at a really it was like a pretty popular conference at the time. Yeah. And me being the introvert that I am, I was probably sitting in a corner, just like being overwhelmed by all of the noise.
I think it was like a bedroom of the house, like one of the little side rooms. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sure it was because I was like overwhelmed by like all the overstimulation. And I am such a person for like one-on-one conversations. So like, of course, like when we sat down and had I don't remember what we talked about. I'm sure it was something interesting at the time, but like we were talking about just like business and like all these different things. And it like really blossomed into a beautiful relationship and a beautiful like friendship over the years. And it's so cool because watching your journey over the past few years, it's felt like everything is just like clicking into place. Like a lot of the things that we wanted and like really dreamed about back in 2017, like have come to fruition. And I think a really big piece of that has really been your version of success and getting so crystal clear on what that means to you. So I would love to just kind of dig into like, what are you doing now? What is a little bit of your journey? What is your version of success?
Yeah, that's a really great way to put it. And so I think the first step was shifting to full service, right? Of like, I don't want to do hundreds and hundreds of portrait sessions to be able to make the amount that I want to make, which was not very much at the time, And then Aislinn, too, seeing that in the wedding space, like how much do I actually want to scale here until I really step into like, do I want to like do the kick in the pants and hit up the luxury space? Or is there something else I want to be doing? And portrait sessions were where it was at for me. I absolutely loved portrait sessions. I love serving my clients past digitals. And as I was doing that, I would have people reaching out to me all the time, like, how are you selling so many products through the years of my journey? So I'd been a photographer about 5 years before shifting to full service. And now I've been a photographer 6 years since then. And there was a huge point of change. And that's when our circles met, right? And it changed mine and my husband's life. It changed our lifestyle. It changed my business. But I was so frustrated that it had taken me 5 years to not even know there was a much better way to run my business. And I really kind of like tested and refined what I was doing until I found a way that it just worked really, really well for me. And I would say for a lot of just on location photographers wanting to start making those steps without needing to open a studio or things like that. But they want this to be something more than a fun little momtography side gig or a little extra spending money. But like I saw you can build actual wealth doing this. And I did that for my husband and I in our journey. So coaching on it really, Aislinn, it's interesting. It really wasn't like, let's see if I can make some money here. It really came out of passion of just like, I would have girls over to my house for a girls' night that were photographers and would gather them around and be like, y'all have to start offering products. Like so much money on the table here. There's so much service to your clients. Like it was very organic to step into and then just really took off. And what I will say, Aislinn, is like, wow, photography, when you do full service, becomes so much more scalable and you can be uncapped. I then saw with coaching, you can be completely uncapped and coach people in other countries, different time zones, and set things up where it's even more scalable. And I also loved that aspect of it too.
I love this so much. So, when Christa is talking about full service photography, what she's talking about is in person sales and product sales and really serving your clients beyond just giving them digital images. And this was something I did in my business for many years. I did kind of a hybrid version of it
Yeah.
because I was also doing this with weddings. Christa, you really dug into like how to do this with portraits. And
Mm-hmm.
now you get to teach other people like how to do this like in their businesses. So I would love to just kind of hear like when you first started to teach other people
Yeah.
how to do in-person sales, like what did that look like for you? Because I know a
Oh
lot of people in
gosh.
my audience, I'm sure it was like really messy because it was messy for me too. But
Yeah.
I know a lot of people in my audience are in this space where they're like, okay, cool. I've been in business for a while. I love my clients, but like I see other people having 20K, 30K months.
Right.
Like it's got to be available to me. Like what do I do? So what did that first kind of like foray
Absolutely.
into multiple streams of revenue look like for you?
I would say like the first step, Aislinn, is like your why that you're doing it. And like if you're passionate about what you're doing, you can find a way to sell it. But I have found that even when a lot of my top level photography students I coach, Aislinn, like are naturally progressing into starting other branches of their business. And like if that, what I have seen, if that stems, and even when I've launched something and it's stemming from a financial goal, things do not often go as well versus if you have something that you are sitting on, share it. And I think people talk themselves out of it. Like, I don't know if anyone, and I'm like, no, like you're amazing. And like having a coach like you, Aislinn, to look at them and say like, you bring so much to the table, even if it's the same topic that I'm coaching on over here, you're going to say it in your own way. And so for me, one of the cool things about the photo industry is photographers follow photographers. You're at conferences with them. So like my first round of coaching, Aislinn, was just a lot of, I think almost everyone was already in my circles. And that's what I tell students who are interested in starting to offer something is like, there's people right in front of you that if you presented this would be all over this. Like you don't even have to go dig at people with ads sometimes. Like they can be right there in front of you. And that was a great first step. Those students in that first round, especially, I feel like they're like my little babies because it was like the first group had incredible results. And I started selling this before I even had it built out. And that's another obstacle I see is I have to have everything, all my ducks in a row. It has to be foolproof. I have to know that nothing could go wrong. I have to have the exact support that I want figured out. And it's like, no, it's impossible for you to know all of those things yet. Like just get it started and go from there.
Yeah, we were kind of laughing about this like earlier about like a lot of people will go the route of like, I'm going to go to a conference in order to learn how to like have multiple streams of revenue. And I love you guys to pieces. That is not going to help you when you have your first launch and you freak out because nobody buys on the first day. Like
Exactly.
you need a coach for that.
Yeah.
Sorry, like to be the bearer of bad news,
Oh,
but that's actually
100%.
the truth. And I think that's like one of the things I want to kind of touch on, Christa, is like investment in yourself. What are some of the investments you've made in yourself over the years that have like really paid off to get you to where you are today?
Absolutely. Onto the conference thing, not to not to Aislinn and I are not here to hate on conferences, but it's the same with photography. If you go to all these photo conferences but aren't ever picking up your camera shooting, you're never gonna get there no matter how much knowledge you soak up. And so Aislinn, like that first big investment. So I did go into conferences. That's where I met you and learned. I will say that wasn't, I think I misspoke before. That actually wasn't a photo conference before. It was creatives. And I think that is even more beneficial than going to a straight photo conference. What I will say is like you actually connected with me with my first photo coach. And back then, I don't remember what year that was, Aislinn, 2019. Like that just was not a huge thing. And I don't know why, but like I was the only one of my friends in my circles that had an actual like coach where it was more than just maybe a couple $100 course. Like those were running rampant. But to actually have a coach, Aislinn, that's when I realized I need to build something based on my goals, not someone else's. I need the support when I run into a speed bump. Those aren't things you get with a low ticket coach. But Aislinn, on the flip side of it, because I made that significant investment in myself, which now looking back, it was a drop in the bucket. But at the time, I invested in that coach because I needed more money. It was a drop in the bucket, but investing in myself, I started holding myself to that higher standard. I showed up for myself in a new way because I invested in myself in a big way. I was taking myself seriously. It wasn't a rinky-dink course, which again, helpful. Think of all, and I tell my students like, think of all the courses you have sitting there. You maybe went through module 1 or 2, but like when I'm investing thousands in myself, you better believe I'm showing up for myself and taking up, on that support.
Yeah, and I think there's some funny mindset things here that like kind of like play into it too. Is like when you start to invest in yourself and you start to spend in a way that you've never spent before, it is going to like deepen your trust with yourself because
Yeah.
you are deepening your trust with how you spend money and how you have a relationship with money. So I think that's like a really like cool like thought process to have around investment. It's
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's not like how much money can I invest in myself this year? It's like, no, like I trust myself that I am my very best investment. So when I spend this money,
Yeah.
I am going to make sure that I am showing up in a way that says I trust myself with this.
Exactly. Yeah. And it is scary. Like, that's not to say at all that it's like it needs to be, it feel like a drop in the bucket because it never has at the time. The coaches that have got me the biggest results, it never was like an immediate yes drop in the bucket. Like, I really thought through it and like made sure this would get me to the next level. But then like when I started coaching, and that was a whole nother world, and I spent 30 grand on that coach, like that was terrifying, right? Like that's as much as I made like my first several years of photography combined. And I did that back in 2 months because I held myself to that standard and showed up for myself. I would not have done that with a $200 course. I would not have showed up for myself in the same way. And again, it's also not to say throw money out the window at your education. Like I picked a coach who could fast track me to that next level in a way that I wanted to go. So for instance, I know I don't know everything out there. I still don't. I have weak spots. I have blind spots. And I realize that my time is so valuable to me and where I put my money, especially now being a mom, like I want to fast track things. And if someone can get me to that end goal faster, that is invaluable to me. And so while I made these pivots in business and I see you did the same, like I think that's cool that we both did it. People often saw that and were like, oh, wow, whatever pivot you make, it seems to go really well. And I'm like, I actually can't take credit for it. I dump a lot of money into my education, and that's what fast tracks that. I don't sit there and DIY 5 different things. Like if I'm doing something, I'm all in. Like, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm sure you see this in your students too, the ones
Mm-hmm.
who like they're scared to invest and that's okay. But like
Yeah.
once they're actually like inside your program, they like treat themselves differently, almost
Yeah.
like they show up differently. And like, I don't know, like as a coach is incredibly fulfilling to see that because it's just like, you got your
It
proud
is.
little like moment for that.
It is. And I know for you, you coach at a very high level. So often for your students, I'm sure many of them have invested big in themselves. For me, with where I'm at, these are often photographers where I was at when I hired my first coach, charging $300 to $600, maybe doing 3 grand weddings. And maybe they've gone to a conference or two or a workshop, but like this is their first container where they've had coaching support. And it is really scary because they're like, I've never invested in something like this before. Aislinn, it's been so cool to see one student in my first round comes to mind. And I'll be honest, she did not have a ton of like immediate traction in our time coaching together, but we set up the tools and we got firm on the mindset of what she needed to do and ended up quadrupling her income the following year, right? Because with coaching Aislinn, I know I talked about like, I want someone to fast track me, but that 30 grand investment, that was actually a coach for a full year because at that level, it's not an overnight success. And I think some students, when you expect that, that's when disappointment comes versus like, where do you want to be long term? Like next year and the year after and even with in-person sales, shifting your business model, you can't shift it overnight. It's a journey. It's a process to get there, and having support as you go there is key. So I've had upper level students I've been coaching now for over 2 years, or they just signed on their 3rd term with me because like they see like it's a building, it's a growth structure. It's not all at once.
Yeah. I just had another client sign on for a 3rd year and I'm just
Yeah,
like, I love you guys so much. Like
right.
to know where they were when they started and like to know like they're like continuing their growth and knowing that like year 3 is going to be like the best year yet because everything we've been working on is like really starting to
Right.
blossom and like those like seeds we planted are like incredibly like flourishing at this point.
Exactly. And you operate your business differently at each of those different levels that they hit. Like for, my signature program Uncapped is a few month basically crash course on let's get in-person sales set up. That's different support than students I've coached in the photo space coming to me already at 6 figures, already at a $1,500 average, now ready to build out a team. Like that's different support. And so you're right. Like for you, to be on that journey with your students, and to see where they've come from, you can help them even more as they go along. And my photo coach, Aislinn, I had every single year that I did photography full time. I had her in my back pocket. I stayed on with her because of that, because there was that growth involved. I knew I can't just get everything and be good. Like I need that continued support for my journey. And that investment I made in myself, I think it was about $6,000 that I made in myself. And I have options like way less than that. But to me, I held myself to a standard. I needed that extra support, reaped to hundreds of thousands of dollars, which again, that 6,000 became a tiny, 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 tiny percentage of. And I get it's so scary when photographers are just looking at how low the previous year was, or business owners that want to start coaching, but last year wasn't great. And now you're saying, for me to learn how to do this is this much. It's like, oh my gosh, like make the leap. You'll make that back and more.
Yeah, absolutely. I would love to kind of like dive into like how you are running multiple businesses at one
Yeah.
time, because you have your full service portraits. You also have this coaching business. And at one point you had weddings as well.
Mm-hmm.
So like I would love like if you have any tips for people who are
Yeah.
in that season where they're like, maybe they already are running multiple streams of business, but they're like, how do I juggle this? I would love to kind of hear more
Absolutely.
from you on that.
I would say definitely, Aislinn, outsourcing is key. And again, it's one of those things like investing in a coach, the next version of yourself. It's really scary, but I always look at like, where do I want to be? So I don't want to make decisions just for the now. That's a scarcity mindset. That's why I think the median income for photographers is around 30K. It's because we're
Ooh.
making decisions based, I know, we're making decisions based on like what's going on now. I operated things and I set things up very intentionally, especially with the coaching business, in order to be scalable. And so I realized, hey, if I offer X amount of support, I'm capped at this many students. Versus if I can set up a container like this and have everything laid out this way, more people can join and I can make my price more accessible, right? There's two different plays. And I have upper level coaching spots, but there's not as many open because I'm a finite person. And so as I grew, I hired out the places that I didn't need to be and someone else could support me in, even though it was scary to like take on more overhead. But it allowed me to scale in a way where I can continue running my photo business. And I have help with that. I have actually a separate employee just for that side of things. But then I have about 3 regular people helping me as we scale the coaching side of the business.
I love that. At
Yeah.
some point, I'm going to have to ask you about some of your team members, because I just like had to like kind of switch up like my team,
Yeah.
and I'm like, okay.
And that's part of it. It's like not also, Aislinn, like not being afraid to make those shifts when you see it happen, right? And I think again, I coach primarily in the photo space. We get into that rut. You and I both did shoot and burn for several years. It makes it even more scary to see those changes. But being able to look at, this isn't going to work long term. I need to make some changes. It's really scary, maybe some infrastructure, but it's so worth it.
Yeah, I love what you said about like you make decisions based on where you want to go.
Yeah.
And I think this is like one of those things that we have to get so incredibly clear on, is like, where are we headed? And I also think of like who you were back in like 2018, 2019, like when we were like sitting in different rooms together,
Yeah.
like physically, like that version of you could not freaking imagine the life you're living right now. But she had a desire of like, I want something different. I know I want something more. And whatever the path is to get that is going to show up for me.
Yeah.
So I love that you've like been able to pivot so much over the years, and also like make your version of it. Like you could have easily just been like, coaching's going well, I think I'm going to stop doing photography, but
Yeah.
you didn't. You want to keep in it.
But I feel the same about you. And I feel like every pivot you've made, you've been like so successful at. Like you're one of the most intentional people that I know. And like even I know for your students when you're chatting with them, and even when you and I have had conversations, it's like you just pinpoint exactly like what's going on. You're not distracted at all. Aislinn's not one of the people, if you went to coffee with, who's going to be staring at their phone every time it goes off. We've all been there where it's like, are you even like listening to me? You're incredibly intentional with wherever you're at. And I do believe that's a huge reason that you've had so much success with every pivot you've made.
I appreciate you. I actually wanted to kind of like dig into like how your offer suite is built versus how my offer suite is built, because I think this would be so incredibly helpful for people to kind of understand like when you are building multiple streams of business or multiple streams of revenue, you're building out multiple businesses, it can look so incredibly different. So can you go into what your different containers are and maybe just like the level of support? You're welcome to like, talk about each one of them as well. But I would love to know, like, how did you build this out so that you are not sitting at your desk, like chained to your microphone and your camera every single day for 8 hours?
Exactly. And I think that is like one of the reasons, Aislinn, I hear of people saying like, oh, I don't want to start a coaching business or this, I'm going to be chained to my desk. And it's like, no, you get to decide how you want to build it. Like, that's the beauty of it. And it doesn't have to be compared to anybody else. So for me, I started with like a main offer and I just really worked on scaling that. And I sometimes see that go wrong where people jump into it with 10 different offers and none of them are selling. And it's like, you have to focus on one thing first and let's make sure that that's good and then add more. And so I started it's uncapped. It's actually very similar now to when I started it because I was very intentional. And in order to scale it, I don't do one-on-one calls with everyone. Instead, what I've done is mapped out the info so incredibly clearly, added modules that I needed, added whole sections if I saw a gap, and where everything is laid out, but I support in a group Slack so that they have that community. And I can also answer questions like on my time. It doesn't have to be live. I can be on a completely different time zone or traveling and still give my students those support. We do a few group calls a month. Some are hot seats where, again, I still can do some live coaching. But what I had found is instead of saying intensively the same thing over and over and over again for someone to completely shift from shoot and burn to in-person sales, it's all packaged there with a bow, like all the divots, ins and outs that you could need. After I went through that, I had students who crushed it and they were like, I'm ready for more. Okay, that touch point's going to look different. Some are growing a team. Some want to scale session average. Some want to scale number of sessions. Some want to completely pivot out of weddings. And so I have something called Inner Circle, which is the highest touch point to me, where we do that one-on-one call. We do have that daily access. We do go on a retreat, but it's very limited, thus a higher investment as well, because they're also making more and we can fast track things quicker. But that's only for photographers already doing in-person sales at that level. Now, what we're actually about to roll out is a really low ticket offer just on basic marketing. And the idea for that is just a great, easy, low investment, low barrier of entry for people to come into my circles. Like, obviously, you have your podcast. I also have a podcast, but ways that people can find you and spend something, less than the 4-figure range to have that touch point with you and to earn that like know and trust.
I love that. And, it's so interesting because I think a lot of people, when they're starting to get into coaching or they're starting to get into these different things, they don't do the market research and they don't do the stick with itness.
Yep.
I see a lot of people who are like, okay, I'm going to have this freebie and then I'm going to have this course and that course didn't sell. So I'm going to start a new course and then I'm going to start a mastermind. This mastermind didn't work. So I'm going to switch the way it's set up. And it's like, I have run Success Accelerator programs since March of 2022. I have run it for years. It's like, there's never been a stop point. I've always had clients inside of SAP. And over the years, it's changed here and there. I've definitely changed the access and definitely changed some of the things. But over time, the program has just become this really robust, it could live on its own without any of the coaching side of things. I just love coaching. So that's part of it. But it's so interesting because I see so many people who just run off the rails with it didn't work the first time. So I need to make something brand new. Would encourage anyone listening to this, Chris and I both have very successful coaching branches, or businesses. It doesn't have to be brand new all the time. It could literally be the same thing for years and years and years, and it's perfect.
Yeah. And I'm going to be honest, I even shy away a bit from coaches who are just cranking out all these random things here and there because it's I don't want to do that. What you've done and Teach Aislinn is proven. People need that. So scale that. And I think sometimes too, Aislinn, people think, it's not selling. I need to add in all this other support and do all these things for everybody and hold their hand and wake them up in the morning. And I'm like, don't do that. That's not scalable either. And you're also going to attract a really needy client who expects you to wake them up every morning. And I promise you don't want that either.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll kind of run through what my offer suite is. So as you guys are listening to this, you can kind of hear the difference in it, although it is very similar. So I started my coaching business with I started with a 90-day one-on-one container that ended up actually being the coursework for SAP. I ran it. It was really fun. I ran it through a couple of different one-on-one clients. They had incredible success. And I was like, all right, let's go. We're making this a group program. So in March of 2022, I started SAP for the first time and I just ran it over and over and over again. That has been my core program since 2021, basically. And I've run it many different ways, but it has always been about creating your success as a wedding professional or your success as a creative. So we talk about sales, we talk about mindset, we talk about marketing. There's kind of a lot of different topics we talk about in there, but the core part of it is being a better business owner, essentially. So that one has always kind of lived in my offer suite. Over the years, I have noticed that a lot of people in the wedding industry start to get to this point where they are like, I actually think I want to have multiple businesses, or I'm at multi six figures at this point. I need help like outsourcing. I need help with team. I need
Yeah.
help with like the like CEO mindset. So we launched Creative Cash Flow Mastermind last year. So CCF is for that, like it's kind of like your inner circle. It's like for that client who's already established and they are ready to scale beyond, whether
Yeah.
that's with coaching or it's with multiple, like we have clients out there who have like 5 different businesses. So
Yeah.
it just depends on what they're trying to create. And then this year, actually, I think it was in January of this year, we launched Expand Your Mindset membership, which is a low ticket offer that essentially allows my people to come in and listen to me riff and talk about mindset every single week. So it's a perfect space for anyone who is getting to this point where they're like, okay, well, I'm not ready for a full course, or I'm not ready to spend time in mentorship, but I really need someone to just like listen to that has a really amazing mindset around
Yeah.
business. And that's exactly what UIM is. And then I do all these kind of like one-off things occasionally, like as things like come up that I find like interest in that don't necessarily belong in SAP or CCF. But over the years, like my offer suite has grown, but there's always been like this core of SAP. It's
Right.
always been there. So I love that you talk about uncapped being your core as well.
Yeah. And I think what's interesting, Aislinn, is we both kind of started with that middle tier. And again, people don't have to. I'm sure you have students who want to just jump straight to the top and just charge 10 grand a seat out the gate, or like start with the low ticket. That's fine. But what I think is interesting is like you would not have had the tools to make CCF or your lower mindset offer had you not just gotten so good at making your middle program like so incredible for photographers and seen like that they need this next level of support. And I say that I'm coaching a student right now who just launched a program, and she had mentioned like, okay, great, what are the tiers I need? And I'm like, no, like don't, it is impossible for you to know that yet. Like just start with this one that Aislinn for you like can serve the masses and be so good. You've refined it. I would say also for you, it's something that doesn't need to be changed a ton year to year. Marketing is marketing, business is business. I know you teach the OG principles everybody needs, and then go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. So, are there any like tips on freebies, funnels, email lists that you want to share before
Oh
we
yeah.
like go into how people can work with you?
Yeah, absolutely. I think Aislinn, one thing that I've even learned, because I'm always still investing in my education, now that the industry has become more saturated with coaches, I don't view that as a bad thing at all. I know people out there are like, the coaching industry is terrible. And it's like, okay, well, no, A, and B, if you have one bad experience with a coach, it doesn't mean they're all terrible. But really, messaging is key. So, really get clear on not trying to speak to everybody. You and I, Aislinn, I bet our coaching has overlaps, but we are speaking to two different people. And if we are not hyper focused on that and you're trying to speak to the entire photo industry, well, no wonder there's going to be crickets. Versus speaking directly to the person and their pain points, the more specific you are, I think the more people you're going to attract. Similarly, when you see that ad, I remember when I would nurse Riley in the middle of the night and you see that ad at 2 a.m. and you're like, oh my gosh, this is exactly what I need, right? Like, because it speaks directly to you, you can't not check it out. So I would say really get hyper clear on your messaging. And then second, you touched on this. Don't give up if the first launch is a flop. You know how many coaches out there sold something for a couple $100 that barely sold and now are charging tens of thousands of dollars for it? Stick with it. Building a business, it's not a straight line up. There's ups and downs, and every coach will tell you that it does not mean that you're in the wrong or that your topic sucks. Maybe it looks like you need some help and some coaching support, and that's okay.
Yeah. I don't even have a number for you guys of how many times I've had launches that had crickets, like no
Oh,
one
yeah.
bought. And I've had 12K launches and I've had 48K launches and I've also had 30K months.
Exactly. And we've had months
The
in the
zero.
negative. Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I think Aislinn,
Yeah.
it crossed my mind when Taylor Lee, she's a women's business coach, had posted that and was going through Thrivecart at all of the sales pages she had made with zero purchases. And I was like, okay.
That's so funny. I was in a mastermind with Taylor a couple
Yeah,
years ago.
that's so funny. Yeah, she's really cool.
Yeah. So I think like just to kind of like put a bow on this, if someone is listening to this and they have not started to build like scalable
Yeah.
income streams, where would you recommend they start? And I don't think this necessarily has to be coaching because I think in-person sales is also pretty scalable too.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so someone who maybe wants to dip their toe into starting another offer or education.
Yeah. Or someone who just wants to have a more scalable business. They're stuck in that cycle of like things pretty much look the same all the time for income.
Yeah, absolutely. I think you said this before where you were like, think about like where you want to be. Like, what do you want things to look like? And then get the support that you need to get there. And it's not just coaching, like nurture your audience towards that direction. Don't just build a business, build a brand where you can have like different branches. Jasmine Star talks a lot about this, where like she has all these different businesses, but her brand is so solid, they're all successful. And so start to nurture those people, just start giving them content based on your expertise. Like show up, like just get in front of people. I think that's the biggest thing is when we are like hiding in the woodworks for like a year and then we come out and it's like, but bam, and like no one, like Christa, no one's buying. And I'm like, well, where were you the last year? Like, so I think even if you're not sure what it is you want to offer, or maybe you have an idea, just start showing up with value to your audience that will attract people who would eventually be buyers.
Yeah. And I'll kind of add on to that. In 2020, I did 77 free coffee dates on Zoom because
Wow.
I wanted connection and I wanted to like talk to people. Quite a few of those people ended up becoming clients
Yes.
years later. I had no idea at the time that I was going to do a coaching business.
Yeah.
I just wanted to like have connection. So like even if right now you're like, well, how do I give value? You are enough as you are. Like you, like just speaking could be the value that needs to be said. Like, and
Yeah.
that could be Zoom calls, that could be on Instagram, it could be in emails. Just start where you are and give value where you are and like show up with like this space of, I don't know what's going to happen, but I trust that it's going to be really good.
Exactly. And it was the same growing your photo business. And I tell my students that too, of like, give out gift cards to get people in the door, right? Very basic marketing. But what if they don't spend anything else? Then that's a great connection that you made. That's the risk, but that's putting yourself out there and getting in front of people. It's going to take time. It's going to take energy. It's going to take money, but it pays off.
Yeah, absolutely. Krista, thank you so much for being here. I would love if you could share how people can find you if they want to work with you in any capacity, what that looks like
Yeah.
and how they can get connected.
Yeah, Instagram is best. I'm at Christa with the CH_Rene, RENE. So would love to hear from you if you want to slide into my DMs.
I love that. And can you tell people about the different offers that you have?
Yeah, absolutely. Uncapped is my favorite offer. This is perfect for photographers going from shoot and burn to full service. You don't need a studio to do it. You can do it virtually. I have students who will triple averages, add 20 to 100K onto their income. Others whose goals is just to be more present, maybe with family and at family dinners, but just to build something more sustainable. I've broken down the step by step. That's my favorite place for photographers to go. And then if you're already past that 1K average and want to scale in the portrait space further, DM me and I have more intensive options.
I love that. Well, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. Like I literally like have notes over here that I took
feel
down.
the same talking to you.
Perfect. Well, I hope that you have a beautiful day and thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom.
Thanks for having me, Aislinn.